faces, thank everyone for coming. I think it is just wonderful, and I really hope that everyone really enjoys the afternoon. And as we said before, please help yourself to refreshments throughout the afternoon. And I mentioned before, but I'll say it again, there's a washroom at the one exit down there by the kitchen, and the other one, if you go out that door and down the hall, there's another washroom. So before we go much further, I'd like to just say a thank you. Usually, I do this at the end, but I thought these ladies and the gentlemen have just worked so hard here at the church putting this all together. So just a few names specifically. I'd like to thank June Banbury, Kathy Axel, and Ian Ralston. I would also like to thank Susan, the church secretary, throughout when we were preparing this day through the months. Susan was just such a wonderful person to get hold of, and also June to work out any details. So thanks so much for all the ladies and gentlemen in the kitchen, and for anyone whose name I may have forgotten to mention. And I'd also like to thank Reverend Smith's son and daughter-in-law for the lovely decorations. There was a wedding here yesterday, so we can't take the credit for that. In a few minutes, Mr. Campbell is going to regale us with a speech that he has been working on since probably the beginning of April. So we prepared everything. When you're 90, a speech can become a history lesson almost. That's a lot of events and people in time and just a lot of stuff a person has seen when they're 90 years old. Just before Grandpa starts his speech though, I thought I would just share some little facts people might not know about Mr. Campbell. His name is Mr. Kenneth Frederick Campbell. The Kenneth, his mother named him, I think it was just a popular boy's name at the time, and Frederick is named after his father. Okay. Now, a few things about Mr. Campbell. He loves to travel. Throughout the years, he has dipped his toes into the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean and traveled virtually from one side of the country to the other. He also traveled to Great Britain and Wales and Scotland, where he drove around like a madman. And one of his highlights, he went to New York City. His grandson Sam was married 2 years ago, and Grandpa traveled to Connecticut for a wedding, and then went into New York City, where he gave the Wall Street Bull a big hug and kiss. Grandpa and my mom had a wonderful retirement, and one of the things Dad liked to do was to go pick strawberries. And Grandpa, this is sort of in random order, he was born the same year as Time magazine was first published, and that was 1923, and they're both going strong. Grandpa loves to cook. You might not know that, but he does, especially pancakes. Just expect a little smoke in your kitchen. So if you want some details on that, you better speak to Martha and Doug Bentley. They can fill you in on one such occasion when Grandpa really showed how he could whip up a batch of pancakes. When we were younger, we always went camping in the summer. Now, camping seems to be like a Canadian Tire commercial. Soon they're going to have a remote control. You just go flick and up comes the tent and everything starts. But back in the 50s, well, maybe we started in the 60s, camping was hard work. You had those thick, heavy canvas tents that were always wet. You slept on the ground. You didn't have nice mattresses under your sleeping bag. And through the camping, we saw many, many parts of Ontario and also out west. And I think that really deepened for me my love of the province of Ontario, just going to various places. And to this day, we talk about those trips, so they really stayed with us. Okay, Grandpa loves to write. English and reading and history are his favorite subjects, and he's had his writing published in the Retirement magazine. It's right there on the table. Just a nice little story about what to do to look ahead for retirement and to get ready for it. So if anyone's thinking of retiring, the magazine's right there. The number of prime ministers Grandpa's lived through has been 13. I've seen come and go. Another memory I have is when my grandparents, when they lived in El Dorado, they had a maple syrup tap line. And one time we were down there, and my grandmother in the winter poured maple syrup on the snow. Well, I thought, gee, it was like magic because you got this candy out of it. Like, this was just the greatest. Another thing Grandpa should be proud of, he has, I don't know how many it took him to get, but electrical wiring certificates from the city. He took some courses because he decided that he wanted to spruce up our basement and he wanted to put in all the wiring. Well, must have worked because the house is still standing. Thanks, Grandpa. Okay, saving little memories. Oh, another memory. Grandpa, of course, lived during the Depression. And I really think that for so many people, the Depression left, it just stays with you all your life. And in some ways, I think living through the Depression was a gift for people because it taught you so much that I think this current young generation maybe doesn't quite have. And I remember Grandpa telling me this story, how the bank came to their farm and they wanted things in exchange for money and Grandpa had this little phonograph. He loved playing little records on it, and the bank took that away, and I was just so touched by that, and I thought if I could go on eBay and find that phonograph, I would, but I don't think so. Anyways, that's just a few little stories, and I'm sure while Grandpa's speaking, I'll think of some more merriment. And so what I want you to do, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, our first guest speaker, to be followed by Jack Adams. That's Mr. Campbell.